let's find some more critical numbers. We'll start by finding the derivative of this function. The derivative of x to the fourth power is 4x cubed. The derivative of x cubed is 3x squared. The derivative of x squared is 2x. And the derivative of 1 is just 0. Now that we have the derivative, we want to see where this derivative is undefined. Since the domain of this polynomial function is all real numbers, our derivative is not undefined. Next, we want to look for where f prime of x is equal to 0. So we'll set it equal to 0. And then I notice that each of these terms has an x, so I can factor out an x. So I have x times the quantity 4x squared plus 3x plus 2. I know that by zero product property, this whole thing will be equal to 0 when x is equal to 0. And now I need to use the quadratic formula for this next part. If I can spell formula. There we go. So we have -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 times 4 times 2 all over 2 times 4. So we have -3 plus or minus the square root of 9 minus 4 times 4 times 2 gives us 32 all over 8. Since 9 minus 32 is a negative number, that means that our determinant is less than 0. Since this is less than 0, there's no real solutions to the 4x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0. So our only critical number is x is equal to 0. Let's look at this next function. We have f of x is equal to x plus 1 over x. We'll take the derivative, so we have f prime of x is equal to 1 minus 1 over x squared. If you needed to take another step where you rewrote that 1 over x as an x to the -1, that's perfectly okay. Let's start by looking for where this is undefined. This will be undefined when the denominator is equal to 0, so that will be where x is equal to 0. Now we'll look for where f prime of x is equal to 0. So we need to set this equal to 0 and then solve for x. So we have that 1 over x squared is equal to 1 by adding 1 over x squared to both sides. Then we can multiply both sides by x squared. So we have 1 is equal to x squared. Then we need to take the square root of both sides. So we get that x is equal to positive or -1. So combining where our derivative is undefined and where it's equal to 0, we get that our critical numbers are x is equal to -1, 0, and +1. Let's look at this next function. We have f of x is equal to the quantity x squared minus 1 all cubed. So we have to take our derivative. Here we'll have to use a bit of chain rule. So we have 3 times x squared minus 1 all squared. So that's the derivative of that outside function, which is being cubed, times the derivative of the inside function. The derivative of x squared minus 1 is 2x. Our domain is all real numbers, so our derivative is not undefined for any x values. But now we want to look at where our derivative is equal to 0. What's nice is that this is all already factored. So we need to look for where x squared minus 1 is equal to 0 and where x is equal to 0. So that would be x is equal to, for that x squared minus 1, we get x is equal to positive or negative 1. For that 2x piece, 2x equals 0 when x is equal to 0. So our critical numbers are x is equal to negative 1, 1, and 0, which I suppose I could have put in order and I didn't. Okay. One last problem. Let's take a look at this rational function. In order to take the derivative, we will have to use the quotient rule. So we get that f prime of x is equal to low, so x squared minus 9 times the derivative of the higher function. The derivative of x plus 2 is 1, minus the higher function, so that's the x plus 2, times the derivative of the lower function. The derivative of x squared minus 9 is 2x, all over our denominator, which is the x squared minus 9 all squared. Okay. So let's look at where this derivative is undefined. It will be undefined when our denominator is equal to 0. So that's where x is equal to positive or negative 3. Then we want to solve this for 0. So we'll need to do a bit of simplification. So we have x squared minus 9 minus, if I distribute that 2x to each term in the x plus 2, that gives me 2x squared plus 4x. Oh, but I also have to distribute the negative, so that's minus 4x. All over, I'm going to keep this factored. So all over x squared, the quantity x squared minus 9 squared. And let's simplify that a little further. So x squared minus 2x squared gives us negative x squared. And then we have minus 4x minus 9 all over the quantity x squared minus 9 all squared. This whole entire thing will be equal to 0 when the numerator is equal to 0. So we have 0 is equal to negative x squared plus 4x plus 9, factoring out that negative. So then we need to use, well, if nothing jumps out at you, you can try using quadratic formula. So we have negative 4 plus or minus the square root of 4 squared, which is 16, minus 4 times 1 times 9, all over 2. Since our determinant is less than 0, we have no real solutions. So that means that our only critical numbers are where our function is undefined. So our critical numbers are negative 3, or when x is equal to negative 3 and positive 3.